Well, hello everybody. It's lovely to see you. It is Wednesday. It's 2 o'clock Mountain Time, and it means one thing and one thing only. It is time for Make Stories Matter with me, Matthew Taylor. So it is lovely to see you, and we're going to change things a little bit, or not really change them, but rather than talking directly about story, what I wanted to do was talk about the connection that is between story and leadership. And because this is a little bit more of a longer subject, we'll probably take the next couple of Facebook Lives to be able to talk about that. So, what I would love you to do, first of all, is think about somebody who was a mentor of yours, just one person that made a difference in your life. And now think, what are the qualities that that person showed you that made you follow them, that made you listen to what they said and not just listen to it, but then enact it and actually learn from them. And so just for a moment, just think about what are those different qualities they had. And if you can narrow them down to one or two words to be able to describe each of the qualities, that would be helpful too. So right now, you should be enjoying yourself because you're probably thinking about somebody who you really liked. So for me, I was thinking about people like Roger Gilliatt and Mary Shirley and Peter Clemenson, who were all people when I was back in England that really affected my life. And I would follow some of the things they said, or every now and then, if I was struggling at some point, I'd go back and think about what is it that Roger Gilliatt would have done or said at that time. So now you have those in there. The reason I ask this question is that I wanted to start exploring this phenomenon of story as it connects with leadership. The problem was that I'd never really worked for a big company. I've always been an entrepreneur and had my own small businesses. And yes, I would give myself titles, sometimes very fancy titles, like when I had a bicycle distributing business, Spirit of Life Distributing, my title was El Presidente, which sounded almost kind of directorial almost. But because I didn't work for a big company, I didn't have like a title like vice president of something or this, or a manager, position and all the rest of it. So I was struggling a little bit to think about this connection for leadership. What does leadership actually mean? And what does it mean for me? And the reason I wanted to explore leadership is there are billions and billions of dollars spent every year on leadership. And so it probably made a lot of sense for me to kind of understand it just on a business kind of standpoint. So what I realized was, what do you call a leader who doesn't have any followers? And it's kind of an interesting question, because when I ask people if they consider themselves to be leaders, they often will go, no, not really, or so sometimes, but most people don't. But yet we are all want to be or should be leaders because we always want people to follow us. And I know that I follow these different people. So your mentor that you're thinking about or have got that little list of qualities, that person was a leader. They may not even have thought they were, and they might not have been in a position to leading, and yet you followed them. So I looked at why people followed to be able to kind of access this leadership point. And then when I did do it, I realized that, I started listing all the mentors that I'd mentioned and different other ones, and listing all these kind of qualities they showed, because that would indicate to me that I think you probably know by now that I'm a big fan of what I call RWTs, or real world tests. It's like, if it happens in the real world, let's pay attention to it. So for me, if I actually followed somebody, well, then what they did is probably something I could emulate or think of emulating. And then I discovered that Gallup, kind of the bean counters of the world, statisticians to the max, who I am big fans of, had already done the research for me. And they had done, it was quite a few years ago, they did this research on why people follow. And they came up with 4 buckets that were just kind of taking these ideas of what it is that people look for in order to follow somebody. And these were the 4 buckets. The first was people look for trust. Then the next was compassion. The third was stability. And the fourth was hope. And so when I looked back at the people that I was thinking about, all the different qualities and ideas that I had from those people fell into those buckets. And the more I've spoken to other people, and what I'd love you to do is to think about what you were thinking on those mentors that you've been just kind of had in your mind, whether they fall into those qualities. And I was kind of chuckling because, as I said, Gallup are fairly kind of what's the word? Statisticians. They kind of put numbers to all kinds of things, and it's very. And I was just laughing because I was thinking, God, can you imagine when they came up with this? That they'd be like, what? Trust, like compassion? How are we going to attach something? Stability we can do something with. It's like hope, and yet those were the things that could always surface. And this is where I think this link for story and leadership is so powerful. Because when you think about those qualities, they are things that you can't tell people. You can't say to somebody, and I work quite a lot in the legal world, or the legal profession, and certainly for a lawyer, if they're networking or going and chatting to people, they don't do great when they say, hey, trust me, I'm a lawyer. It doesn't usually mean the conversation flows at that point. But it's exactly the same for any of us. You can't tell somebody to trust you. You have to earn the trust from the person. In the same way as you can't tell somebody you're compassionate. I've always chuckled when I would drive by a hotel, and on the sign it would say a luxury hotel. And for me, I'm like, well, the one thing it probably isn't is luxurious, because luxury hotels don't tell you they're luxury. They just are luxurious when you walk in. And so it is that kind of part. So we have to be able to work out how we can help people see those qualities in us. Because I think the majority of us have those qualities in us. I mean, there are obviously some people who are just not very pleasant or nice or horrible or whatever, and maybe they don't. And so, hey, we won't hang with them. But the majority of people are, trustworthy and compassionate people. We are as a race, I think. And we all look for hope. I mean, hope is just such an incredibly important part for us as humans. The stability part would tie with, the competency and the knowledge of the work and reliability and all of these kind of elements as well. It would all tie into. So we know what people are looking for now. And if it is matched up to the ones that you were thinking about yourselves, well, it's one of those real moments. It's like, that is true. That's what I looked for in these different elements. So what we have to do is find moments in our lives when we were trustworthy, or it would just illustrate it, just show to somebody that is there, hint at it, or if we were compassionate, and those are, and then the stability side is a bit easier to do with, obviously, with actions and things, but by doing what you say and being prompt, and your knowledge of a subject to areas like that will show that. And these things are a lot easier. I was thinking about it. It was like, how do I help people kind of think those ideas? So literally in the last couple of weeks, there were a couple of moments where I was like, I was in the grocery store before the King Super strike. I didn't go in while they were striking, and I think they've resolved it all, so I'm very happy about that. But this was out in Denver, Colorado, and I was going along, and there was a lady who was struggling to get things out of the top shelf in a freezer. And so I just asked if she needed help, and she said, yes, please. So I brought out, a couple of the pieces and put them in the basket, and she goes, yeah, I need some more of this. And they were like the little, it was kind of weird. It was like almost like a cereal, but individually wrapped kind of a little part. And I wasn't sure. And then she goes, yeah, no, and the other ones, and the others. And I ended up helping her take every single one that was in the store out and put it into a basket. I mean, there must have been 15 or 20. And the very last ones, I mean, she was struggling with the ones right at the very beginning. I couldn't read. At one point, she even said to me, oh, I don't want you to hurt yourself. Because I was like on my very tippy toes, like stretching my, I was like, I will get this last little piece of cereal box. But I got them out. I was thinking, well, people, when they observed or saw what was going on, or were just around, or even just relaying that moment, illustrates the fact there's a certain amount of compassion, or it's a willingness to help, or however you think about it. But that little moment. And another one, I was at the airport and dropped somebody, and I went back out to the short-term parking, and there was a guy there, and his car wouldn't start, and so I helped him jumping. He had cables, and so I was leaving, and my car was working, so I helped him jump the car. And he was with, I think, maybe his mother or an old lady that he was with, or maybe grandmother. And, there they were stuck at the airport. And they were so thankful, and they were so sweet how they kind of thanked me for doing it. And I was like, well, I didn't have to dash somewhere. And was it inconvenient? It was like, it was there. Was it chilly? A little bit. But I mean, it was just, but again, it's another action that would show it. And so we all have those actions all of the time, always. And so start thinking about them and cataloging them, not in a systematic way necessarily, but just understand how valuable they are, because you can always float little pieces into conversations. And anytime we are talking and making those connections early on, any of those little kind of moments will register with the person who you were with, or the group of people that you were with, and they will start making up on their own the fact of who you are. It is that quote that I love from Grover, that is, reveal yourself or others will reveal you. It's exactly what we're talking about. The only thing is that you are consciously being sure to be able to reveal elements that will show that you're trustworthy, that you're compassionate, that you have stability and confidence and grace. And then the hope side of it is more of the information that you're delivering, whether it can offer that person hope or how. So that's a little bit more on the content side of it. Whereas these initial parts are much more your inner stories of who you are as an actual person. But we know what people are looking for now. So our job is always to be able to deliver it. So if you think of these great leaders, they are so often connected with story. And if you think of Abraham Lincoln, and you think of Oprah Winfrey, or Steve Jobs, Martin Luther King, in the religious worlds, whether you believe in certain ones or not, but all of the, if you think of Jesus, it's like, oh my gosh, always story driven on anything that would happen on those. And you see them all, people who generate these followings always have this moment of story, this ability to orate. So that is a little bit to kind of be thinking about. This whole idea of why people follow and what they're really looking for. We like to kind of give you a tip on these little Facebook Live moments as well, because we are about making stories matter. And so what I would say for this one is play with it, see. I mean, think about those little moments and share them with people, just here and there, casually in the conversation. And remember, we're thinking about moments, like story moments, not once upon a time and all the explosion. They're short, little tiny bits. But share them and observe. See how your audience reacts to it. And the likelihood is they may well share a moment like that about themselves. And then you'll be able to gather from those as well who they are as a person. So play with it and keep listening and be nice. I'll just say that because, you know what, the world right now, it's tough. And really the simplest thing we do have control over is how we interact with other people. And so part of sharing stories and being able to build these relationships with people, I think is as powerful now, or more important, I should maybe say, than it has ever been. So thank you so much for joining me. I'm Matthew Taylor. If you want to get a hold of me, I would love to chat with you all. You can go to my website, which is matthewtaylor.com, or email me at matthew@matthewtaylor.com. We do have a Facebook group as well, which is what is our Facebook group, Matthew? I know what it is. It is powerfully fun storytelling, is what it is. And I also do have a YouTube channel, which is Matthew Taylor Stories. And all the little Facebook Lives and other bits are going to be posting up on there. So you can always kind of visit it there. So thank you for your time. Have a fantastic rest of your Wednesday, or whatever day you are viewing this little video. And next week, we will continue this connection, the undeniable connection between story and leadership. And we'll look a little bit, we'll go back a bit in history, and we'll look a little bit at Aristotle and see what he says about pieces like this. And then wrap it up and see why it is such an incredibly powerful tool if you want to influence people and basically help people, or create your tribe and have people follow what it is that you want to do to make this world better and help others. So thanks a lot. We'll catch you soon. And please do reach out, or comment, or like, or share, or do all of those kind of things that we like to do in this world. Cheers.